It was a Wednesday, the kind of day so numbingly identical to all the others that it became invisible. Routine was its camouflage. He came home from work at 6:12 p.m., parked in the same spot he always did, keyed in the code at the front door, and walked into the scent of rosemary and garlic, her signature chicken bake. She always started it around 5:30. Not a special meal, just comfortable. He hung his coat, loosened his tie, and dropped his phone on the side table with a small, unconscious thud. The evening flowed exactly as it should have, every step accounted for. But as he moved toward the kitchen, he passed the living room, and the smallest thing, not even wrong, just out of sync, caught the corner of his eye. The coffee table drawer was open. Not wide, not even an inch. Just enough for the dark line of the interior to break the clean surface, a mouth, barely parted, whispering something was off. He stopped mid-step, turned, stared. The drawer. She never opened that drawer. Not once in years. That was his drawer, remotes, receipts, an old flashlight, lint-covered mints that were probably older than their marriage. She joked it was a man cave in a box, useless junk only he could love. And yet, here it was. Breached. Slightly. Quietly. Almost apologetically. He didn't touch it. Not yet. Instead, he just stood there, listening to the low hum of the oven and the faint clink of a spoon against ceramic in the kitchen. She was in there, humming under her breath, a soft tune that dissolved into the evening air. He looked down. Her phone, her real phone, sat on the couch cushion. That in itself wasn't strange. She always left it lying around. Trusted him with it. Insisted she had nothing to hide. But the drawer. He finally reached forward and slid it open. Slowly. No reason to rush. There, nestled between an expired AAA card and an old TV warranty, was something out of place. A piece of cloth. Black. Thin. Delicate. He pulled it out. Lingerie. Not hers. Not the style she wore, not the brand she ever bought. She hated lace. Said it was scratchy and impractical. But this, it was intricate, expensive-looking, soft as a spider web. He knew that instantly, because it caught on the edge of his thumbnail, not tearing, just resisting like silk held under tension. He turned it in his hands, not breathing. The tag was still attached. That was what finally chilled him. Not the garment. Not the drawer. The tag. She hadn't worn it. Not yet. It was bought, hidden, possibly forgotten. Or maybe she meant to hide it better. Maybe she had been interrupted. Either way, it sat there like a loaded gun someone forgot to chamber. And beneath it, something else. A small receipt, folded twice. Boutique lingerie store. Not in town. 2 cities over. Date. 2 weeks ago. A Friday, he remembered. She'd told him she was going to her sister's to help with a birthday party for her niece. She'd even FaceTimed him from her car with a balloon in the back seat. That was the moment. Not the drawer, not the lace, not even the tag. The balloon. It wasn't in the receipt photo. She had driven 2 hours, bought this, and then what, gone to her sister's like she said? Or was the balloon just a prop? He placed the receipt back precisely where he found it, slid the lingerie underneath it, and closed the drawer gently. No rush. No sound. The room returned to its state of order, the secret sealed again, but not for him. For him, the fracture had already formed, too clean to see, too sharp to feel right away. He walked into the kitchen and kissed her cheek from behind. She smiled, tasting the sauce. "You're quiet," she said. "Just tired," he replied. And he was. But not from the day. Not from work. From knowing. Because knowing doesn't come with sirens or screaming. It doesn't burst through the door. It slips through a crack the size of a whisper, settles behind your eyes, and waits. It changed without changing. That was the genius of it. Nothing obvious. No dramatic fights or slammed doors. No lipstick on collars, no perfume that didn't belong. Just a shift in temperature, like a room losing heat by degrees too small to measure. At first, he thought it was work. Hers had been stressful lately, deadlines, late meetings, new hires. She came home exhausted, dropped her bag by the door without looking at him, poured a glass of wine before she even took off her shoes. That wasn't strange. People get tired. But it kept happening. And then it wasn't just the wine. It was the way she'd retreat to the bedroom with her laptop, door almost closed, claiming she had emails to catch up on. The chicken bake stopped. She started ordering takeout. Not for both of them, just for herself. He'd come home to empty containers in the trash, meals he never saw her eat. One night it was Thai. The next, sushi. One evening, the unmistakable smell of shawarma clung to the air, but she insisted she wasn't hungry. She started laughing at her phone. Quiet chuckles that didn't match anything on the screen when he caught glimpses of it. A lot of scrolling. A lot of quick swipes away when he walked in the room. Her phone, once tossed carelessly on counters and cushions, now lived in her pocket. Or under her pillow. Sometimes even in the bathroom while she showered. And that's when the code started. She never used to have one. But now it blinked to life with a fingerprint. Then a pattern. Then 6 digits. Each time he noticed, it got longer. More elaborate. More secure. She called it privacy. Said she was entitled to a space of her own. But it wasn't the lock that bothered him. It was how easily the lie came out of her mouth when she said it. She smiled a lot. Oversmiled. Forced brightness that made her eyes look empty. He tried to talk to her, real conversations, not small talk. Asked how she was feeling. She answered in abstracts. Working on myself. Trying to focus on growth. Learning to love me again. Never we. Never us. He became a mirror, not a man. Reflecting back whatever she wanted to see. Noticing things he didn't want to notice. Like how she stopped saying goodnight if he didn't say it first. Or how she forgot his birthday until Facebook reminded her. Or how she kissed him goodbye one morning with her eyes open. The house was quiet, but the silence felt occupied. Like someone else was there, just out of sight, moving in the corners of the space they once shared. He found himself listening more. Watching more. She started texting in the bathroom with the door locked. Started sleeping with the phone face down, then under the pillow. Once, she left it on the charger and walked away, and he heard a ping, a name he didn't recognize. Not a man's name. Not obviously. Just initials. AT followed by a heart. He didn't touch it. Didn't need to. She came back seconds later, picked it up with robotic instinct, and didn't even glance at him. One night, he checked the shared calendar. She'd always been meticulous about putting everything in: dinner plans, her yoga sessions, even dentist appointments. But now there were gaps. Blank spaces where there used to be detail. Whole weekends labeled just me time. Once, she told him she was going to a work seminar. He checked the hotel she claimed to be staying at. No record of her name. No seminar listed. He called the front desk pretending to confirm a reservation. They said no group bookings under her company. Nothing scheduled. When she got back 2 days later, she brought him a paperweight from the hotel gift shop and talked about how exhausting the conference was. That was the almost moment. He could have said something. Could have asked about the reservation, the seminar, the lie sitting warm in her hand. But instead, he smiled and took the paperweight. Held it in his palm like a stone pulled from a grave. Looks expensive, he said. She nodded. You deserve nice things. And that was the most disturbing part. How smoothly it came out. How sincere she sounded. Like she still cared. Like she hadn't already replaced him in some invisible, undisclosed corner of her life. He realized then that he wasn't losing her. He'd already lost her. He was just standing in the ruins, pretending the walls were still up. He watched her now. Watched her when she smiled at her phone. Watched her when she stared at nothing in the kitchen for too long. Watched the way her hand trembled slightly when she forgot he was in the room. The illusion of love hadn't shattered. It was still intact. Beautiful even. But it was hollow. He could hear the echo inside it every time she said his name with that practiced softness. He didn't say a word. Just nodded. Just smiled. Just played along. But inside, he had already stopped believing. It happened on a Sunday, the only day they both had off. She'd suggested a walk in the park, something simple and grounding, her words, like they were rediscovering each other. She wore that soft gray sweater he liked, the one she never wore anymore, and for a moment he almost believed she was trying. They walked. They laughed. She reached for his hand. Everything felt rehearsed, but polished enough to fool an outsider. Then, just as they rounded the lake trail, she asked if they could stop at the florist, said she wanted to get something for her mother's grave. He offered to come in, but she smiled and said, "No, just let me do this." A small thing. A reasonable request. She walked inside while he stayed in the car, engine running, watching her through the glass, turning over cards, pointing at bouquets. It was almost peaceful until he glanced down at the dashboard. Her phone was still in the center console. Unlocked. That was the mistake. That was the moment. He didn't hesitate. Didn't feel guilty. Just tapped into the messages, not looking for anything specific, just a pattern. It didn't take long. There was no AT anymore. That was a cover. There was Cam. Just Cam. And an entire thread of conversations buried beneath muted notifications. Photos. Voice notes. Plans. What struck him wasn't the content. It wasn't even the naked photo she'd sent, taken in their bedroom, his bedroom. It was the timestamp. The exact moment. Thursday night, 9:18 p.m. He had been downstairs fixing the garbage disposal she'd claimed was broken. She was upstairs reading. She'd sent the picture from their bed, while he was elbow-deep in the metal throat of a drain. That was the clarity, not the betrayal, but the precision of it. It wasn't an affair out of weakness. It was an affair wrapped in strategy, comfort, timing. A calculated lie supported by layers. The drain wasn't broken. That was a stage direction. She needed him out of the room so she could be alone with the lens. He stared at the photo, not blinking. Her face in the mirror behind her smug. Confident. Not seductive. There was no fear in her posture. No guilt. Just entitlement. She assumed he'd never see it. Assumed he'd keep fixing the garbage while she documented their ruin in HD. That was when something shut off. Cleanly. Permanently. The man who had tried to believe, who had rationalized every red flag as anxiety or paranoia, that man ceased to exist. In his place was someone new. Someone surgical. He put the phone back exactly where she left it, screen off, angle unchanged. She returned 2 minutes later, holding a bouquet of lilies. They were out of carnations, she said. These okay? He nodded. Perfect. They drove home in silence, except for the soft hum of the AC. She played with the bouquet's ribbon. He memorized her hand movements, how natural they looked, how innocent. By the time they pulled into the driveway, he already had the beginning of a plan. She didn't know it yet, but she was done. Not just exposed, cornered. This wouldn't be a confrontation. It wouldn't be a breakdown. It would be a dissection. No screaming. No chaos. Just exactitude. She had turned their home into a crime scene and assumed he'd never dust for prints. But he had them now, all of them. Dates. Times. Faces. Enough to map her second life with military precision. And she didn't even know she'd been caught. She kissed him on the cheek before heading inside, saying something about needing a bath. He smiled. Said he'd join her later. She smiled back, trusting, dumb, still in character. But something in her eyes twitched. A flicker. A tension. Maybe she saw it. Maybe not. He hoped she did. Because war was coming. And she wouldn't even hear it until it was already over. She didn't know anything was wrong until they pulled into his parents' driveway, the one place she always played the part perfectly. Sunday dinner, just the 5 of them. His parents, his younger sister, and them. She wore the yellow dress he used to say made her glow. Hugged his mother like nothing was broken. Laughed too loud. Complimented the roast she didn't touch. And he let her perform. Let her shine. Let her pour her wine and nod like a woman who knew her place in the world was safe. It wasn't until dessert, when his mother brought out the almond cake and offered second helpings, that he struck the match. Hey babe, he said casually, you remember what you were doing last Thursday night? She blinked. Paused. Thursday. Her smile held. Probably working late. Why? He tilted his head, fake curiosity dripping. No. I mean around 9:18. You said you were reading in bed. You sent me a text about that book you couldn't put down. She narrowed her eyes. Right. Yeah, I think so. Why are you being weird? He held up his phone. Tapped it once. The screen lit up with a photo. Her photo. Taken in their bed. Lingerie. Smiling into the mirror. Nothing graphic, but obvious. Because you weren't reading. You were doing a photo shoot. For Cam. Her wine glass froze halfway to her mouth. Everyone at the table went still. His father looked down. His mother's eyes widened. His sister inhaled but didn't speak. And his wife, let out a small laugh. Nervous. High-pitched. Okay, what is this? She said, eyes darting. You're seriously bringing this up here? Why not? He said, voice flat. This is the only table you haven't lied at yet. You don't know what you're talking about, she snapped. You're looking through my phone now? Real healthy. No need to dig, he said. You left it unlocked. Cam says hi, by the way. Real poet, that one. Wish I was the one she fell asleep next to ring a bell. Her face shifted then. The tightness around the eyes. The twitch at her jaw. You're twisting things, she said. It wasn't like that. No. He leaned forward. You lied about the work trip. Lied about the broken garbage disposal. You set the stage, took the shot, sent it from my bed while I was downstairs fixing a problem you made up. That's not just infidelity. That's planning. That's intent. You don't understand, she whispered, voice cracking just slightly. I was lonely. You've been distant for months. Distant, he echoed, with a slow, disbelieving shake of his head. You think I was distant? I was breaking my back to keep this place running while you played house with a guy who thinks emotional depth means typing emojis. You weren't lonely. You were bored. And you wanted to see if you could get away with it. She stood up, voice rising. You humiliate me here, in front of your family? What kind of man does that? The kind who spent the last year watching the woman he loved turn into a stranger. The kind who stayed silent while you locked your phone, hid your calendar, smiled like everything was fine while building a life he wasn't part of. The kind who watched his birthday come and go while you were off sending gifts to another man. That kind. You're exaggerating, she said, her tone collapsing. It was one mistake. Just a connection I needed. You shut me out. He laughed, once cold and sharp. You don't get to call it a mistake. A mistake is dropping a glass. You built a second world and handed someone else the key. You didn't want a connection. You wanted control. You wanted to be adored without being known. That's why you picked someone who only sees what you show. I stopped adoring you the second you started hiding. She looked around now, desperate, eyes wet. His mother had tears on her cheeks. His sister wouldn't look at her. His father stood and walked out of the room. She turned back to him, trembling. Please, she said, voice small. Can we just go home and talk? He looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, she wasn't composed, wasn't confident. She looked like someone trying to patch holes in a sinking ship with her bare hands. Home, he said softly. You mean the place you treated like a set? No, we're not going anywhere. You can leave now. Go explain yourself to Cam. Or whoever's next. She broke then, a shudder in her shoulders, a desperate gasp like she couldn't find enough air. But he didn't move, didn't blink. Just watched her come apart, piece by piece. And that was the final cut. He didn't yell. He didn't run. He simply stood still, the one thing she never expected. Because when a man stops fighting for you, it means he's already won. She followed him outside moments after he stepped into the garden, still clutching her phone like it could somehow undo the past hour. The sun was dipping, casting long shadows across the lawn, and from the corner of his eye, he saw his mother through the kitchen window, pretending to dry a dish that had long since dried. You're blowing this out of proportion, she hissed, voice too loud, too strained. You're not perfect either, you know. You think being cold and distant doesn't count as betrayal. He didn't look at her, just folded his hands behind his back and studied the hedges. I was cold because I was alone, he said, voice quiet. Because every time I reached for you, I found someone else wearing your face. She took a step closer, her voice trembling now. You'll never find someone who loves you like I did. He turned his head slightly, just enough for her to see the flatness in his eyes. I hope not. That stopped her. A beat passed. Then another. Her voice dropped to a plea, broken and breathless. I didn't mean for it to go this far. It happened. And I didn't know how to stop it. But I love you. I swear I do. He looked at her fully now. You loved being loved. Not me. You loved the stage. The adoration. The security. You never once loved the man, just the mirror he held up for you. She shook her head violently. That's not true. I was just lost. You made me feel invisible. He stepped forward. No. I made you feel seen. Every version of you. Even the ones you tried to bury. And when you couldn't hide behind my praise anymore, you needed someone new to clap for the performance. Her lip trembled. I didn't sleep with him. We never even. He raised a hand slightly. Don't insult us both. You think the lie is mercy. It's not. It's cowardice. She folded, arms across her stomach, rocking slightly. You don't understand what it's like to feel like nothing. Like you're fading. Then you should have said something, he replied, voice like frost. You should have reached for me instead of posing for someone who barely knows your name. But you didn't want help. You wanted worship. And when I stopped kneeling, you replaced me with a child who only saw your best angles. Her eyes flooded then, and she stepped closer, desperate. Please, don't do this. We can fix it. I'll change. I'll go to therapy. I'll delete everything, block him, whatever you want. He tilted his head. You think this is about him? She froze. It's not, he continued. He's just the consequence. The proof. This is about you. About how easily you build a fantasy and let me starve in reality. About how you sold off the truth in pieces and thought I'd never count the cost. She tried again, reaching for his hand. You're throwing away everything we've built. You burned it, he interrupted. You just expected me to keep living in the ashes. Her breath hitched, a soft sob escaping her throat. She looked around, like maybe someone would come help her. His sister stood at the kitchen door now. She looked away when their eyes met. No rescue would come. No sympathy left in the room. What am I supposed to do now? She whispered. What do I have without you? And there it was, the real fear, the real loss. Not love, not guilt, but consequence. He looked at her for a long moment, the final silence between them thick and irreversible. Then he said, evenly, you'll have what you gave me. Distance, doubt, silence. And maybe, if you're honest with yourself, a mirror you can't quite look into. She collapsed into herself, a noise halfway between a cry and a gasp, but he didn't move to catch her. Didn't speak again. Just turned and walked back toward the house, the door clicking shut behind him like the final word she'd never get to speak. It's strange how quickly a person can vanish in plain sight. 6 months after it all burned, she was a ghost wandering the ruins she built. Her Instagram went silent. Her job let her go after inappropriate conduct. Rumors spread, not from him, but from the lover she clung to when the marriage crumbled, the same man who dropped her the second she became inconvenient. Turns out he wasn't interested in the real her, just the illusion she sold when someone else was footing the bills and keeping the lights on. Her circle of friends splintered, most of them siding quietly with him, not because they loved him more, but because they saw who she really was once the curtain dropped. Her sister blocked her. Her own mother stopped replying to messages after she drunkenly left a voicemail blaming everyone else for the mess she created. The confidence, the smirks, the deflections, all gone now. Replaced with shaky texts at 1:17 a.m. Misspelled apologies. Screenshots of old conversations she thought he'd forgotten. I still love you, she wrote. You were my person. My soulmate. Please, just talk to me. I made a mistake. I was sick, confused. I didn't know what I was doing. But the thing about soulmates is this. They don't set fire to the very heart they claim to be connected to. They don't build a second life in the attic of the first. He read the messages. Didn't delete them. Didn't respond. Just let them sit, unread, like artifacts from a war long over. She showed up once. Outside his new place. Eyes puffy, makeup streaked, wearing the same coat she used to call her power piece. It hung off her like a costume now. She didn't speak at first, just stood in the rain, waiting for recognition that never came. He looked at her, really looked at her, and didn't feel rage or pain or even pity. He felt nothing. Just the quiet awareness that the woman in front of him had once played his wife, but now she was just a stranger with his memories. She tried to smile, said his name like it was supposed to mean something, and when he didn't flinch, she broke. Tears. Begging. Promises of therapy, of change, of redemption. Just give me a chance to explain, she whispered. He met her eyes and spoke evenly, no venom in his voice. I already gave you everything. You explained yourself with every lie you lived. There's nothing left to say. And then he closed the door. Not slammed. Just closed. Calm, final, quiet. She stayed on the porch another 15 minutes. He heard her sob through the wood. But she eventually left. That was the last time he saw her. Word is she moved back in with a cousin 2 towns over. Working part-time at a boutique. Still tries to rebuild. Still posts quotes about healing and resilience. But everyone sees through it now. Because once you play God with someone's trust and get caught, your divinity dies in public. And her stage is gone. Her script failed. And the only person left to witness her collapse is the man she discarded, who now watches from a distance, not with bitterness, but with disinterest. That's the real ending. Not fire. Not fury. Just indifference. She doesn't haunt him. She doesn't even matter. She's not the woman he lost. She's the stranger who wore her face. And he, finally, is free. Thanks for listening. Let me know where you're watching from, and what you would have done if it were your wife.